back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 79. Here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing on this fine summer day?
Doing excellent, Phil. Got a cold one, ready to talk fights. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Is it still summer? It's still summer, right? Barely?
In Arizona, it's 110, so yeah, I'm considering it summer still.
Oh my gosh. Okay, all right. So here's what's on tap today, guys. First, we've got our UFC on Vegas 8 recap and review. That was Lionheart versus Rakic. After that, our UFC on Vegas 9 preview and picks, Overeem versus Sakai. After that, my favorite section, listener questions and more. But first, we're going to start off the episode with my weekly question for Fight Geek. Fight Geek, it's a little different this time. I'm not going to ask about the main event. We'll get to Lionheart versus Rakic. But I wanted to ask about Dana White's comments today to Brett Okamoto that they are currently working on Masvidal versus Diaz 2. It is being targeted for either late 2020 or early 2021. And my understanding is that the BMF belt will be on the line. Many people on MMA Twitter were extremely unhappy with this fight. They think Masvidal should be fighting Edwards. I understand their concerns, but I think that this was obvious from the get-go. When this is about money, you had to have Masvidal headline a pay-per-view. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've touched on it before. You know, Masvidal has reached a certain, star status in the UFC to where he's going to pick fights that make sense for him as far as, money-wise. Leon Edwards, as much as it is the correct fight according to the rankings, does nothing as far as moving the needles. So I think, Nate Diaz is a fight he's probably going to win. It's a fight where it's going to have a ton of eyes on him. He's going to get to be the star of Fight Week and build some momentum off of that. If Nate, for whatever reason, is able to come in and have a better performance, then he's able to build off that too. I mean, I think it's really a no-brainer. I see people are upset, but Masvidal is at this point where I didn't even think he really wanted the title fight. He was almost going for this fight the whole time, was he not?
Absolutely. And when you think about how the title fight happened, I think what you just said is fair. He didn't really want it or need it. It just fell into his lap.
Yeah, well, and I feel like the court of public opinion started to believe that maybe he didn't feel confident in his chances against Usman, so he didn't want it. And then as a overcorrection of that, he just took the fight to be like, I'd rather take the fight and lose than have people think I'm afraid of the fight, because I think that's kind of Masvidal's mentality. Yep. But I think Nate Diaz is the fight, no matter what. And I think whoever wins it, and if this BMF thing is going to continue to, roll down the road, I think Conor McGregor probably lines up for the winner, honestly.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's definitely what the UFC's thinking. I'm sure that's what Masvidal and even Nate are thinking, that, this is a path to Conor. I know that Conor and Khabib too is something that's, being highly talked about as inevitable, but we'll see. GSP's in there.
I don't see that as being inevitable.
Well, the Tony Dustin winner can insert themselves.
Right, but Khabib has not mentioned wanting to fight Conor a second time at all. He mentioned Gaethje, Khabib, GSP, but where are you getting this Conor too is inevitable someday? Because I do not believe that to be true at all.
Well, okay, because what Khabib said specifically about a week and a half ago, is my understanding, to a Russian news outlet, was that he would fight next whoever beats Dustin Poirier. So whether that's, I believe he even said that can be Tony, that can be Conor, or if Dustin
that's almost like Khabib just giving an olive branch out so that maybe he can salvage that Tony fight that everybody wanted.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think he wants
because, I mean, what do you mean?
Fight.
I'll fight who beats Dustin Poirier next. I mean, well, we know who's going to fight him next. So
okay, at the time that he said this, it was very much not made. So maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
Yeah.
There hasn't never even been any discussion about, Conor versus Poirier. I think Conor feels like he's past that fight because of the past results. So, I don't know. I don't think Conor versus Khabib 2 is a probable fight, honestly. I definitely think Conor is going to go for one of these celebrity fights at 170.
Okay, I'm gonna really quickly, and then we'll move on, disagree with you. Now, I know that what you're saying is it's personally what I would like to be true. I don't want to see Khabib Conor 2 at all. I think it doesn't favor either of their legacies, frankly. It really doesn't, because Khabib's already beaten him. Conor's not gonna win. It's a horrible matchup for Conor. But I just have this feeling. I hope I'm wrong so badly, Fight Geek, but I just have this feeling that Conor could come in and just swoop in and steal that shot and make the winner of Dustin Tony just kind of
What's
sit
crazy is Connor's currently retired.
Correct.
He hasn't been active for the past 3 or 4 years, and we're still talking about hypothetical nonsense. Conor McGregor probably is not going to fight Khabib a second time. I mean, where are you getting this from?
I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
I mean, the guy has not been active in the lightweight division ever.
I know. I mean, look, I will say this. He's
going to come off like a 3-year hiatus and get another title shot?
I hear what you're saying, but look, a few weeks ago, I was saying that Masvidal's either fighting McGregor next or Diaz next, and he'll certainly be headlining a pay-per-view. And everyone pushed back on me and said, that makes no sense. It's going to be Masvidal versus Leon Edwards. I said, I don't think it will be. And
that makes no sense because, I mean, you can't have Leon Edwards, who will probably beat Jorge Masvidal, knock the shine off of one of the biggest money earners in the UFC.
Right. I totally agree. All
right.
Okay. All right. So moving on to our UFC on Vegas 8 recap and review. This was Smith versus Rakic. So the main card, look, I'll be honest, this card was not one of my favorite cards, okay?
Why? Because your picks were horrible?
How are your picks?
I went 8-2 on the night.
Did you get Magny over Lawler?
Yes, I did.
What was so bad about my picks? I got Lionheart wrong. That was it.
I actually got the whole main card right.
I think I did too. Oh, I did choose Kim. Okay, jeez. Relax, bro. Chill.
I'm just saying.
It was
actually a very good card if you action-wise.
Okay, all right. So I guess you loved the Ricardo Lamas decision.
It was a good performance by Ricardo Lamas. It was a fun, exciting back-and-forth fight. I think he's talking about retirement afterwards. An older guy like that gets a nice win where he's able to show a lot. I think it's a good note to end on. But I do still think he's kind of, that fringe top 15 in that division. He looked pretty good.
Okay.
Did you even watch the fight, Phil?
I did. I'm shocked that you really want to talk about all of these main event
all
fights.
Of them.
I'm shocked.
There was 4 fights. Did you have any thoughts on Alexa Grasso? Her boxing looked amazing.
Look, it was a unanimous decision. Alexa looked solid, like she
against
always
the
does.
Very tough Kim.
You thought Grasso looked really special, huh?
I did think she looked very good. I think she's one of the most crisp boxers. Her output was great. Yeah, I thought she looked really good.
Okay, so where does Grasso go from here? I'd love to hear, who you think.
Well, that was her debut at 125, so you got to continue to build her a little bit.
She's ranked 14. That's new. That's from this week, by the way.
125. I don't even have that division pulled up. Throw some names at me. Who's 10 or who's
Macy
8
Barber's
to
10. Andrea KGB Lee is 9. Vivian Araujo 8. Roxanne is 7. How about Roxanne?
All right. How about the winner of Araujo versus Montana Del Rosa this weekend?
I don't dislike that.
So something like that makes sense.
Yeah. I guess it's hard for me, Fight Geek, to get super excited about these unanimous decision victories, even with Chris boxing at 125, because my mind always just goes to, well, what will happen against Val?
Well, you can't grade everyone on a curve like that.
Why not? Val's the champion. I think it's fair that for me to get excited.
Lame. So if you're not the champion, you suck?
No, I want to be... No, you're not understanding. I want to get excited about the prospect of them fighting the champion. Like Macy Barber did that for me way back in the day. I don't get excited.
Way back in the day, 8 months ago.
I don't get excited thinking about, Alexa Grasso, she can really trouble Valentina.
Well, Alexa Grasso's 27 years old. She'll probably be in the game for another 6 or 7 years. By that time, Valentina will be long gone, and Alexa Grasso will be one of the top 3 or 4 girls in that division for a very long time.
Okay, all right. So moving on, we got to go through this card because I know this is one of your favorites, one of the most exciting for you. Wouldn't want to skip over that, guys. Neil Magny's extremely exciting victory over Robbie Lawler. No, honestly, it was very impressive. How would you describe, Fight Geek, here's my question. How would you describe Neil Magny's style?
I would say it's all based around his cardio and his pace. That coupled with his length presents problems. I don't really think he's an overly tough guy or an overly violent guy, but he's got a pretty good fight IQ. His cardio is amazing, and he's got a lot of length. So, if you know how to implement a game plan, you can see kind of how he can be effective. And he really was effective against Robbie Lawler. I know people are giving Robbie Lawler a hard time, but I thought Robbie Lawler defended himself in some tough grappling situations very well. I think Neil Magny finishes a lot of guys who he's laying on and putting in those tough spots, but I think Robbie was able, with his experience and his wrestling background and grappling background, to really kind of defend himself. So I wanted to give Robbie some credit there, because I know everyone was like, what's wrong with Robbie Lawler?
What are you? Yeah, man, what are you talking about? You thought Robbie looked good?
I don't think he looked good.
I thought he looked anemic.
People are calling him a shot fighter. I think he
looked as shot as I've ever seen.
I don't think he looked shot. I don't think he should be fighting top 15 fighters any longer, but he definitely could be fighting. If you were, like, for instance, Carlos Condon is getting, who's his next matchup? We were just talking about it. Who they just... forget it. Anyways, if Robbie Lawler,
I'm not your assistant. I'm not your young Jamie. You're always expecting me to come up with this shit. You come up with it, bro. I'm not young Jamie.
If you were giving Robbie Lawler fights like Alex Oliveira, Cowboy Oliveira, or Mike Perry and stuff like that, that would be the appropriate fights.
Condit's fighting Court McGee.
Oh, Court McGee. So we were having this conversation about Court McGee and Condit last week. If you were giving Robbie Lawler Court McGee at this point, would you like his chances?
Yeah. I mean, I'd be nervous. It'd be a fight.
Well, exactly. So there's no reason for Robbie Lawler to be ranked 13th in the welterweight division on a 4-fight losing streak, going against a surging guy like Neil Magny. It's just a horrible matchup. There's no way for Robbie to look good. Every time Robbie got up and exchanged with Neil, he started hurting him, and Neil immediately shot or pushed him up against the cage. Did he not?
Of course. In
the third round, when Robbie came out and tried to get something started, did he start knocking Magny around, and then Magny immediately went into a defensive mode and pushed him up against the cage?
Okay, so while you're arguing that Robbie Lawler looks like the uncrowned champion, the prince of fighting, what did you think of that talk from his coaches in between rounds 2 and 3? A lot of people made a very big deal about that. They were saying, this isn't practice, Robbie. They were saying all kinds of stuff. Yeah. What's going on? We've talked about this. This isn't practice. What are you doing?
Well, I think he obviously had a hard time with the length of Neil Magny. He was getting hit with all those front kicks and those long straight punches. So I think he was getting frustrated, which kind of stifled him a bit. And then he was defending the grappling and the clinch situation so much that his arms were getting full. And then by the time he did break, he didn't really have any juice to throw anything with, because he'd been grappling for 5 straight minutes. So it was a tough matchup. Like I said, I don't think Robbie looked great. I think that it's better for him to drop out of the top 15 and start having those fun kind of middle-of-the-road fights. There's no reason for him to be on like the top 15 title road,
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, look, Lawler's an ex-champion and a good one at that. So the question is, what does he want to accomplish? Because part of me is thinking,
I think he just wants to stay active and fight.
Well, okay, how many losses in a row should it take before he's got to?
Well, is he getting knocked unconscious?
No, is that the barrier you want? No.
Well, I mean, that's when you start worrying about guys. Robbie Lawler's going to decisions, and his loss to Ben Askren was controversial. I mean, he doesn't take. I mean, I know he's taken a lot of damage over his career. I thought it was kind of strange that there was a lot of people calling for him to retire that fight, because it was clearly a horrible matchup on paper.
Okay, we disagree here. I don't think it was that strange. But okay, moving on. The main event, Alexander Rakic defeats Anthony Lionheart Smith via unanimous decision. The first thing that I will say is that I wanted to ask you, Fight Geek. Look, Rakic got the win. Credit to him. He had a very big win. It was a big win. It was a unanimous decision. It was a dominating performance. But is he the dumbest fighter of all time? And the reason I ask you that is he kicked out Anthony's leg so badly that Anthony fell to the floor. It looked like he could not stand up. And then Alexander Rakic Rakic proceeded to get caught, follow Smith to the ground and get caught in his guard.
Yes. I watched the fights this weekend, Phil. I know what happened.
Okay, were you impressed with that fight IQ, or what was going on there?
Well, I wasn't impressed with the fight IQ, but again, he did get a 30-26 on one of the scorecards on your favorite fighter, Anthony Smith, who's a self-proclaimed black belt, yet every single time he gets on the bottom of a 205er, he just sits there for multiple rounds and gets beat on.
We'll talk about Anthony Smith in a second. Don't worry.
I mean, yes. Was Alexander Rakic the most exciting or most intelligent fight? No, but did he go in there and do what he had to do to wash Anthony Smith, who was a top 5 guy in the division? Sure. So if you want to nitpick that. But I mean, I think you'll see a lot of guys have wins similar to that on their record on their way to climbing the ranks.
I think that's perfectly fair. I guess what really didn't sit that well with me, Fight Geek, is how afterwards he lets out this maniac-like scream and then calls for a title shot. What didn't sit well with you
is that he beat up your favorite fighter.
Well, you mean Anthony Smith, who I like? We'll talk about Anthony. Okay, yeah, we'll get into Anthony Smith. So really quickly, right before that, we can get into Anthony Smith. Who would you like to see Rakic fight next? He called for a title shot. That's not happening off this performance.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, but I could definitely see him in a number 1 contender match. Let's say whoever wins out of the Glover fight.
Glover and Santos? Because I figured the winner of Glover Santos would fight the winner of Jan Reyes.
Yeah, you're right there. So I mean,
so what about Yuri Prochazka? That's my idea.
Oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm thinking that one. Okay, so now let's talk about.
Or would you even think about reintroducing Rumble Johnson with Rakic?
No, I would think about reintroducing Rumble Johnson with either the loser of Santos Glover or with Volkan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yuri Prochazka makes a lot of sense. That would be a fun one, and then whoever wins that would really kind of be the next in line.
Exactly. Exactly. Totally agree. And then, okay, so moving on to Anthony Lionheart Smith, who I did incorrectly choose to win this weekend. Notice that when Fight Geek gets it right, he's always got to scream about it. When I beat Fight Geek, I rarely mention it, but that's okay.
Yeah, you're a humble guy, Phil.
I am, born and bred. But, okay, so honestly, Anthony Smith, how do I put it? Look, I've always liked Anthony because I just really see a lot. I think he's very relatable. He's come back. He's gotten cut from the UFC. He's come back. He went on this huge...
He's a very good guy.
He got knocked out by Santos in middleweight. Then he went on a giant 3-fight win streak, got the Jones fight, didn't take that DQ where he could have been champ, which people forget about. He could have been champ. He could have taken that DQ over Jones and become champ, but he didn't, which I'll always respect. But the truth is, Fight Geek, he has looked horrendous lately. I thought that he would bounce back after Glover incorrectly. And after the fight, it was even worse. After this Rakic fight, it was even worse. He was saying, oh man, these guys are just so big. I need to decide whether to go back down to middleweight or bulk up for light heavyweight. And he just sounded broken. And that was hard for me to hear because it's Lionheart.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I said on last week's show that I thought it was just too quick of a turnaround considering the kind of beating he took 3 months ago to Glover. And I know you don't always see like the external damage, but the human body can only take so much trauma in a certain amount of period and be at its apex. So if Anthony Smith was going in there this weekend less than his best because it was a quick turnaround, that really put him and his career in a tough situation because, like you said, it's been multiple fights now where he just gets put on the ground and just held down. And, I mean, it's pretty boring to watch him helplessly doing nothing from the bottom for 20 minutes or whatever,
Yeah, I think the craziest part for me, Fight Geek, is that, people on MMA Twitter are they're so quick to just dismiss Anthony Smith. They've always wanted to. And what hurts so much is that he's got some really impressive wins. I'm aware Rashad Evans showed...
No, I think Anthony Smith is very good offensively. When he's on his feet and he's throwing power shots and he's marching you down, I mean, he's a scary guy. But
he subbed Gustafsson and Volkan off of his back.
There's some places that you can put Anthony Smith where he seems to be absolutely helpless.
Well, he subbed Volkan and Gustafsson off his back.
And neither of those guys are renowned grapplers. So while that's nice, it's not really a feather in his cap.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just gonna say, look, truth is, you guys know I always keep it 100.
I mean,
I don't
he
see Smith
wasn't
going
able
anywhere
to.
now.
Did he even attempt a submission off his back versus Rakic this weekend? I mean, I
No,
literally didn't see him doing anything that so-called black belt would be doing from the bottom to
he
move
looked
around.
broken. He looked broken mentally.
He didn't throw up an arm triangle one time. He didn't. He wasn't trying to get his legs around. I mean, he was doing literally nothing.
And there was no
So,
adjustment from round to round.
and then once the round stopped and he was on his feet and you saw that he wasn't injured, he just went down again and just was able to do absolutely nothing. So it
Yeah,
was a really
yeah.
poor showing. Part of me actually thinks that going back to 185 might be a good idea, considering it's not as deep, which is strange to say because 205 is not that deep either.
Wait. What? I don't agree with that. You're saying middleweight is not as deep as light heavy?
It's kind of a push, but he's already been beaten by a handful of the guys at the very top. I think there's some fresh matchups at 185 for him that would be interesting. Top 7 or 8 guys right now. But in light heavyweight, he's going to be dropping down quite a bit after these past few performances. And the book's out on how to beat him if you're a big, strong 205er.
I don't think he should go back down. I mean, name a time
You
that's
don't
ever.
like his chances versus like a Derek Brunson or someone like that?
I don't know, man. He was a different,
Even someone like
he was a
Kelvin
different fighter at
Gastelum,
middleweight. He was a
like
different
he would
fighter.
be so much bigger than Kelvin Gastelum.
He barely beat that guy Dirty Sanchez at middleweight. He was losing the entire fight, and then he got a submission in what, the last 10 seconds?
He's got a I don't know. It's a tough one because he looked good early at 205, but I think he's been exposed a bit there. If he can reinvent himself again and get the weight cut under control, there may be a better path to success at 185. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I just don't see. I guess what I'm saying is I don't see Lionheart having a title contention success in either division anymore.
So you're officially ready to say Lionheart is a gatekeeper?
Lionheart's a gatekeeper. I'm not. That doesn't mean I'm happy about it. I'm still a fan.
No, and it doesn't mean he's not a good fighter. It just means that he's kind of in a strange spot.
He's absolutely a gatekeeper. He's absolutely not getting another title shot. No way, Jose. No way.
All right.
Okay. All right. So, are we now ready to move on to our UFC on Vegas 9 preview and picks?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. This is UFC on Vegas 9, Overeem versus...
Not a ton of meat on the bone this weekend.
You're not even letting me say the name. Overeem versus Sakai. Okay.
That was...
Thanks. That really made... Oh, Yeah, you're right. It didn't really sound that cool. All right. Okay.
All right. Where do you want to start?
We're going to start with the first fight of the main card, Thiago Moises versus Jalen Turner. Who you got? 155 lightweight
this
belt.
This should be a fun fight. I actually like both guys. I'm going to take Jalen Turner. I think he's, off the top of my head, 4 inches taller. He should have quite a bit of reach. Pretty good striker, so if he can steer clear, I think that he'll be able to land the better shots.
And I'm going to take Thiago. I'm taking him via split.
I think it's Thiago, just like
Oh,
Santos.
my gosh, bro. Thiago.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Tomato.
Thiago. Thank you. I'm going to take him by split decision, though.
Okay, cool.
Okay, moving on. Michel Pereira versus Zalim Imadev. Oh, God. Imadev? Oh, my gosh.
Daev? I don't know.
These Dagestani fighters are killing me with this pronunciation. I'm going to have a heart attack.
I'm going to go with Michel Pereira. I think he's had a couple tough decisions or tough performances based on him being a little too wacky. This is a guy I think he should beat if he comes in focused. So I'm going to take Pereira by stoppage.
Wow. You know what? I've got Zalim Imadaev by second round stoppage.
Okay.
Should be a good one. That's going to be a fun one, by the way.
Yeah, it'll be fun. There's a couple fun matchups on here.
Yep. Okay, next. Sarge Eubanks versus Carol Rosa. Should I go first? I'll go first.
Yeah, go first.
I've got Sarge Eubanks. Look, the truth is I used to, not be... I'm still not Sarge's biggest fan in terms of personality. I don't know. She can just rub me the wrong way a little bit. But she's a great fighter. She really is. And
a great fighter?
Well, look.
5-3 on her career.
5-4. At 5-4 according to Tapology, actually.
That's your definition of a great fighter.
What, dude? What is this? What is this, Casual Club where we just go by the record? Come on, you know what she's done.
Okay, guys, let us know in the comments if you consider Sarge Eubanks a great fighter.
What define great? I didn't say that she belongs in the upper echelons of greatest of all
All
times.
right, I'm just giving you a hard time.
Okay, I got Sarge Eubanks.
I think solid is a more appropriate
solid.
term.
Fine. I got Sarge Eubanks winning this by unanimous decision.
It's super boring, so I'm actually gonna agree. I got Sarge Eubanks via decision.
You were just crapping all over her. You can't pick her too.
Well, I was crapping all over you, calling her great.
Oh my god. Do you guys see what I have to deal with here? I need another beer. Okay, moving on. Ovince St. Preux versus Alonzo Menafield in the co-main event. Woo! It's a fun one.
Yeah, this one was scheduled a few weeks ago, and I think Ovince St. Preux got COVID, right?
I believe that is correct.
Or a cornerman or something. So I picked Alonzo Menafield a few weeks ago. I'm going to stick with my pick now. I just think Ovince St. Preux went up to heavyweight. Now he's back down. I think he's kind of grasping at straws for that last little bit of success. But I think he's going to get hit too much by Menafield and get knocked out probably the second round.
Very, very interesting prediction. Hard to disagree, and I won't. I agree with you. I got Alonzo Menafield, but I got him via third round knockout. Third.
All right.
All right, so now time for the main event. The Reem, Alistair Overeem versus Augusto Sakai. Who you got in this heavyweight showdown?
I mean, this is a good matchup for Overeem. I mean, a guy who takes on literally everyone, has fought everyone. This is actually one that I feel pretty comfortable about. Obviously, Sakai has some solid striking, and if he hits, Overeem clean, we've seen Overeem had some problems with his chin, but I just think technically and physically, Overeem will be superior even at this age. I think he'll piece apart Sakai, probably land a couple of his trademark big knees. He'll be quicker, he'll be sharper, and I just think he'll knock him out in the second round.
Wow, that is interesting, man. Okay, I got Sakai winning this via fourth round TKO, but let me just ask, what have you seen, what makes you have such little belief in Augusto's chances here? I mean, he's 15-1.
Physically, he's not really, on Alistair Overeem's level as far as, quickness, speed, strength. So he's already at a disadvantage there.
Overeem's not exactly a spring chicken no more.
No, he's not a spring chicken, but he wears his age very well. He's in elite shape for his age, and he's a guy who over his career has never stopped training. I mean, to this day, Alistair Overeem's still talking about getting that title in the UFC, which means he's training 24/7. His experience is about 5 times that of Augusto Sakai.
I can read records and add all the numbers together.
If you think about what Alistair Overeem did recently to a guy like Walt Harris, who was similar to him physically and very dangerous on the feet, he was able to steer clear, get the fight where he wanted, and win. And
Harris almost finished him. It's worth noting, if you remember that, almost finished him.
Well, I think Harris obviously presents more problems than Sakai because he's much more explosive and has much more speed with his hands. So I'm taking Alistair Overeem here. If I'm wrong, it'll suck. But I don't see it happening unless he gets clipped by something kind of wild.
All right, cool. So with that, we will take a really quick break, and then we'll be back with listener questions and more. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude, letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision Podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split Podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.TotalAggressionClothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude, back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 79, here with my always brilliant co-host, The Fight Geek, and it is now time for my favorite section of all, Listener Questions!
Alright, let's go.
Alright, let's do it. Okay, so first question comes from My man Jokers LL at Jokers LL, he says, "Do you think the rumors of Brock Lesnar going to Bellator have any truth? Do you think they can pay Lesnar more than the UFC? If he does go to Bellator, I can see him winning with that special belly juice. Phil is an MMA reporter now, so he should have the scoop. Hashtag AskSplitPod." Can't tell if this is like making fun of me tone. It sounds like it might be. But yeah, Fight Geek, what do you think?
I definitely think the rumors to Brock to Bellator could be legit. You know, he's clearly a free agent. One thing I'm not positive about is he out of the USADA testing pool. I think he retired and actually removed himself from the testing
Yeah,
pool.
it's my understanding he is. Yes.
So that would make the Bellator rumors much more substantial, in my opinion, because if he was coming back to the UFC, he would have to get back in the USADA pool, and it would be months before he would be eligible again. Whereas if he were to sign with Bellator, he could have a relatively quick turnaround and be fighting in a month or so, I would think. So I think the Bellator rumors are 100% real. But with that said, the UFC now has John Jones barking at Brock in the heavyweight division, so there's also that kind of match made in heaven. So
Yep, and it's worth noting, I'm glad you said that, Fight Geek, because I wanted to just point out to all the listeners that Dana White did say today that he would consider making a Jones versus Lesnar fight in the UFC
that's
if
the
both
biggest
wanted it.
no-brainer of all time.
Right, of course. I don't believe
making that.
I understand, but the fact that he even put it out there, to me is interesting.
Means that he wants it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want Brock Lesnar versus John Jones? Even you want that, right, Phil?
I would take it. I mean,
considering the circumstances with the heavyweight division, it's the perfect way to usher John Jones in.
Yeah, especially if you're a Jones fan. I'm not, but if you are a Jones fan, you should really like that fight because honestly, I like Jones's chances.
Well, of course, but there's enough intrigue there because Brock's a monster that there would be enough intrigue to make that a massive fight. And if Brock Lesnar was the guy to beat John Jones and brutalize him in there, you would have a whole new monster at heavyweight with the Francis Ngannous and the new generation of guys.
Yep, totally agree. Okay, so moving on to our next question. This is from an OG of the show who, frankly, we don't shout out enough. It's Larry at Larmule61. Love Larry. He has been following our show. He's been following our show since like episode 1 or 2, Fight Geek. He's the man. He says, I love this question too. What do you make of Cormier's revealing of his extra bonus money that was not contractually promised? Now that he's left the promotion as a fighter, was this a good idea or not? And why? Hashtag AskSplitPod. And real quick, Fight Geek, not sure if you caught Ariel and DC.
I did, yeah. I listened to it because I knew you'd be quoting it. So.
Well, no, what do you mean? I'm just answering a listener question. But anyway.
No, I know, yeah. I heard what he said.
It was a lot of money that he revealed. He was revealing after 214.
I feel like I think DC's the ultimate company man. And I almost feel like he says that in a way to kind of like scratch the company's back. Like, even though, maybe they get a little BS for fighter pay and stuff like that, they still, take care of you under the table. So I feel like it's almost him being a company UFC man.
But why does he even, here's my question, and I'm not saying I disagree, but why does DC even feel the need to continue to keep the UFC so happy now? I mean, he doesn't need the money.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a personal thing where he has a gratitude to Dana White and them for changing his life, and maybe he just wants to be a brand ambassador. Who knows what his intentions are.
Well, do you think that there was going to be any backlash with other fighters, maybe rubbed the wrong way? Because just as an example,
I'm sure other fighters, la Conor McGregor, Jorge Masvidal, the Diaz's, I'm sure there's plenty of these massive stars, Ronda Rousey, that when you get to a certain level, you get taken care of on the back end like that. So I would be surprised if the top 1% of the sport aren't like privy to that kind of treatment.
Right. And for those that didn't listen to it, Daniel said that after his loss at UFC 214 against Jones, he shortly thereafter received a call from Lorenzo and Dana notifying him that they were just going to pay him a bonus of $1 million, period. So they gave him...
Well, and then you're talking about the Lorenzo era. That's a completely different regime.
I got the impression that he was getting this money well after Lorenzo left, and I'll tell you why, because I know for a fact, as he already said, he said, this is public knowledge, that he was paid champ money for the Stipe 3 fight.
Okay.
So I believe he's been getting, a lot of extra money on the side throughout. The question is this going to have a blowback not with higher level fighters like the McGregors and Masvidal's Fight Geek? Is this going to blow back with some of the fighters that are on the prelims that could really use...
The fighters on the prelims have no power. They either take their fights or they flounder on the local circuit. So no, it's not going to affect them. They may grumble about it, but what are they going to say? Is someone making 12-12 going to come to Dana and be like, I'm pissed off that DC got a bonus?
I guess, I hear your argument. I guess just for PR purposes, does it make DC look a little... Do you get what I'm saying?
Dana White could care less about those purposes, in my opinion.
I know that Dana could care less, but DC has a very, very nice and shiny rep. So he may care if that gets, damaged at all.
He's the one who said it. I don't know, man.
Okay. All right. So you don't know. I would say
I don't know his intentions, but I think he's always willing to talk about the UFC in the shining light, and that's a way for him to kind of talk positively about them.
Okay. All right. Well, I thought it was a great question from Larry. Overall, Larry, yes, I think he probably should have kept that, to himself. But, again, as Fight Geek said, he's an honest guy, and he's gonna tell it like it is.
You think Montana De La Rosa this weekend is pissed off that DC got a bonus fighting John Jones?
Probably not.
Exactly.
Okay. So now we've got a awesome question from Octopus Toes. Octopus Toes, what up? Another Split Pod OG. That's at Octopus_Toes. He says, if they book Jorge versus Nate, as the rumors say, and Colby's fighting Tyron, Usman is, of course, fighting Burns, Edwards is going to have to fight Wonderboy. Who do you guys think is closest to the next title shot after Burns? #AskSplitPod. And if I could just answer really quickly, Fight Geek, I think that if Colby beats Woodley, it's an absolute no-brainer that he gets the winner of Usman versus Burns. Do you disagree?
I do not disagree. I think that makes perfect sense.
But what if Woodley wins? Now things get interesting.
Well, then if Woodley wins, you could line him up with the winner of that other fight.
Line him up with the winner of Usman Burns?
No.
Edwards Wonderboy?
Exactly.
Okay.
Nobody wants to see, Woodley versus Wonderboy 3, but I would favor Edwards. So let's say, we could end up with Woodley versus Edwards coming off a win versus Covington. Woodley, I know this is a far-fetched, but if he were to beat Covington then Edwards, he would be in line for a title shot, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. No,
yeah,
absolutely.
So, there's about 5 guys right there that can all shuffle back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. But to answer the question succinctly, I think the short answer is I highly expect Colby to beat Tyron. And as people that know me know that I take no pleasure in saying that. I was a Woodley fan when he was. I'm still a Woodley fan, honestly. And yeah, I'll always be a Woodley fan, even though he makes it harder and harder with every rap that he releases. I take no pleasure in saying it, but I really think Colby's going to destroy him, particularly right now.
Yeah, I think it'll just be too much pace and volume. So
yeah, okay. So moving on. We've got a question from my main man, Cyrus King. He's got his own great podcast, Combat Corner. He says, if Brock Lesnar goes to Bellator, how big do you think that will be from a scale of 1 to 10? And why do you give it that number? Fight Geek and Phil, you have to give your own numbered scores. So I think I interpret this as for Bellator. How big will it be for Bellator? And I will say it would be a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, for Bellator, it'd be a 10 out of 10. For the MMA community, it would probably be a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10.
Which is so high for Bellator when you think about it, right?
It would be the biggest signing in the history of their organization, no doubt.
Yeah, exactly. So
it would be literally the first pay-per-view star they've ever signed.
And people are whispering, obviously if they sign Brock, they'd make Brock versus Fedor. Geez, that would be fun.
Yeah, John Jones versus Brock is 100 times more fun, in my opinion.
I agree. I don't disagree with that. But I think either way. But yeah, Cyrus, to answer your question, it'd be huge. For me, a 9 out of 10. Fight Geek says a 10, so I'll say a 9. But it'd be really, really big. Okay, next. This question is from Yugi MMA. Love Yugi. Give him a follow. He's also got a great show at Yugi MMA. And he asks, Do you guys think DC is being groomed to take over Dana's role after he's gone? Try to be unbiased. I love DC too, because he knows I love DC. So
Yeah.
start us
No,
off.
I honestly don't feel like he's being groomed for that. As much of a
I don't
company
either.
man as DC is, he doesn't strike me as a promoter. He's more of a on-air personality. I feel like he'd be more of almost like PR director or something, more so than like the promoter of the organization.
See, I think that DC belongs eventually on like Good Morning America. I think
Well,
that's his
exactly.
peak.
Yeah, I mean he's a crossover personality for sure.
Yeah, I think his peak should be, I can see him being like a Michael Strahan, right? That's who's on Good Morning America.
Exactly. Yep, that makes a ton of sense.
That's
But
what,
I don't think he would veer that far from MMA and wrestling and combat sports because I think he's really entrenched. So, yeah, but I think he's more going to be more of a media personality than a promoter.
okay. And so you do not see him going to like a Good Morning America.
No, I'm not saying I don't see that, but I think he's in love with the sport enough to where he's like Michael Strahan left football altogether. Wasn't a commentator, he wasn't an analyst, and went to Good Morning America or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I don't see DC abandoning the UFC, wrestling, and all of that altogether to go to like a mainstream show. I think it will always have to do with a combat sport for sure.
Very fair, very fair, and honestly, pretty hard to disagree with that. So I agree. Okay, so this next question comes from my man, reusable shoe. That's at reusable shoe, another OG with us from the beginning. Love this guy. He says, "Do you think having so many cards has dialed down the interest of fans in average fight cards?" Hashtag Ask Split Pod.
Absolutely. I think, as we're kind of obviously nobody's complaining about having fights every weekend during this time, but you can tell that the cards are a little thin. Obviously, we get great action on cards we don't are not potentially seeing them coming out that way. But yeah, I think that the cards are a little watered down. There's so many of them that it's hard to get as excited about them. For instance, I mean, the next one I'm really looking forward to is obviously UFC 253.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I think it definitely does.
I have to agree. I think especially in terms of, casual fans, it's gonna dilute it a little bit. But overall, I do think that in the long term, it's good for the sport, particularly Fight Geek, because of 2020. Obviously, COVID, having such a large impact on everyday life, and the fact that the UFC is going to finish the year, I believe, with even more shows than they originally promised, and they're certainly going to finish with 12 pay-per-views because we know there's going to be a UFC 257, is nothing short of incredible. And I think that for the long term of the sport, it will grow the sport because you got to think of how many people that wouldn't have watched MMA were stuck on their couch because of COVID.
You're not considering that there are fights on right now on Tuesday night though. There's such an oversaturation.
Oh, Contender Series, sure.
Well, the Contender Series is great, but I guess there's just so many fights on all the time that I guess you don't miss them as much, and that's why I feel like they may not have. They may not feel the same every weekend. They get a little more monotonous, in my opinion.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I'm selfish, especially in 2020. I don't know what I would have done in hindsight if the UFC hadn't kind of gotten their stuff together, especially just with 2020. But yeah, I think with casuals, your point's really valid.
Cool.
Okay, cool. Moving on to our man Eduardo at Landa Crew. What's up, Eduardo? Another OG. This is a great question. What's your favorite personal interaction with an MMA fighter, face to face or online? Hashtag AskSplitPod. I'll let you go first. I'm sure everyone knows mine.
Mine was at UFC Glendale, Poirier versus Gaethje at the open workouts. Carlos Condit was there. There wasn't a huge crowd. He was kind of working out, taking requests on moves and stuff, and I asked him, to do a question mark kick, and he kind of explained it and kind of demonstrated it. It was just a cool moment where he was kind of like interacting and kind of teaching. So that was my favorite.
Okay, I've got really fast two quick runner-ups, and then I'll name my favorite one. The first runner-up was meeting Henzo Gracie at a Bellator event. He was so nice, so down to earth. His English was I couldn't it wasn't he was smiling a lot, he was nodding a lot. He appeared to understand. Didn't talk too much, but we had a 5 minute
Well,
conversation.
how'd you know it was Henzo? Did he have a name tag?
Oh, it was Henzo. I took a bunch of pictures. It was Henzo. And I just thought that was super cool. The second best was that I was at a Glory kickboxing show about 2 years ago, and this is back at the height of Ariel Helwani before he kind of got annoying, and back when he was with New York Rick, who I really liked. And New York Rick was sitting just a few rows ahead, and I actually introduced myself to him, and he actually invited me to go sit next to him for the rest of the card. And me and New York Rick just kind of talked MMA. That was a ton of fun. So that's number two. And then the number one favorite, of course, guys. I mean, how could I say anything else? Episode number 74 of this show, when I was given a exclusive 30-minute interview with Gilbert Durino Burns. That was by far the coolest moment of my MMA-related life. By far, I couldn't believe it, and I'll always be grateful for it. An interview that even Ariel Helwani can't get right now, and I got a 30-minute exclusive, so that's definitely number one.
Fair enough.
All
Good
right.
question.
I love that question. So much fun. Okay, moving on to our main man, Jalen Ware. Love Jalen. Always brings the fire. That's at strive2b_ great. He says, where would you rank Alistair Overeem amongst MMA heavyweight greats? And what does he need to do to be mentioned with the likes of Fedor, Kane, and other heavyweight greats? Hashtag AskSplitPod.
Yeah, this is a tough question because personally I feel like Overeem is in that upper echelon of all-time heavyweights. I think his longevity actually hurts him in the court of public opinion because he's been around so long. You've seen him take some tough losses. You really think about the Francis knockout and the Curtis Blades TKO when you think about Overeem these days, but the guy has over 40 victories in MMA. He's a kickboxing champion. He's arguably the greatest heavyweight striker to ever compete in MMA. If I had to pick a number off the top of my head without really honing it in, I would say he's probably the sixth best MMA heavyweight of all time.
Okay, that's a little interesting. You obviously danced around the one thing that everyone is thinking, which is he doesn't have a UFC belt.
No, but he has a I can't think of it off the top of my head, but a kickboxing title as well as a Strikeforce belt. So, I mean, it's not like he wasn't a champion.
I know, but I mean, don't you think that? Come on. That's like saying Dan Henderson.
But again,
it's not like Dan Henderson wasn't a champ.
Again,
I know, but you got to get the
champion,
UFC belt. You got to get the UFC belt, though.
I consider Fedor to be great, even though he wasn't the UFC champion. I consider Overeem to be great, especially up against other heavyweights. I mean, Alistair Overeem's a better heavyweight than Tim Sylvia, who held the UFC title, correct?
Yes, I do agree.
So what does it matter if he never held the UFC title? He can't be 1, 2, or 3. Anything after 4, 5, 6 on is fair game. I mean,
I don't know about that, man.
There's only been a handful of great heavyweights to ever compete in the UFC.
Stipe, DC, and Kane, boom, right there. You got to put them right there.
For sure, but Kane, I mean, Overeem in his prime, he probably would lose to Kane. You're right, but I mean, he's definitely right there with the Junior Dos Santoses.
What about Verdum?
I think Overeem handled Verdum pretty easily in his Overeem days. They're right there in the same ballpark. Overeem, Verdum are both top 8 heavyweights of all time. So,
okay.
It's really hard to really differentiate some of those guys. Some heavyweights like Kane have 16 fights in their career. Overeem has 70. So, like I said, his longevity hurts his reputation a bit.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, I think to answer the question, though, of what does he need to do to be mentioned in that, I know that your answer was he's already in that conversation with the Stipes and the Kanes and the DCs. I disagree. I think he needs to get the heavyweight title, but only one, just get the title. He doesn't need to defend it, nothing like that. But if he can get that title, that'll elevate him.
Oh, well, clearly that would elevate him. That takes him from being like the sixth or seventh best heavyweight of all time to like third or fourth. But I think that's past. He's clearly not going to win the belt at this point, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah. No,
But I don't think you can look at him like he's not championship quality, considering he held belts in multiple organizations.
I think that's fair. I mean, would you say, okay, Dan Henderson is championship quality, but he was never a champion.
100%.
He was never a champion in the UFC, though.
I personally don't knock Dan Henderson down at all for not holding a UFC belt. I consider him one of the best middleweights of all time, above some guys who held UFC belts.
Would you put him higher than Bisping? Don't say yes.
All time? Probably.
Okay.
If there was an all-time MMA ranking, I would probably put Dan Henderson a touch above, considering his title reign was much longer in pride. I think he was a 2-division champion, and Bisping mostly had his success and a small window at the end of his career. So over the span
Bisping also won the belt with one eye.
Well, that's fair enough. Dan Henderson was competing for a belt at 44 years old and damn near knocked Bisping out on his home turf.
That's fair enough as well.
So,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't know. We got a little sidetracked there. But.
Moving on. No, I like our sidetracks. Moving on to the next listener question. We got some great ones tonight. Okay, this is from Oscar Silva at WWEUFC_fan. Oscar, we've loved you the last few weeks. Keep asking the questions. You've been a great addition to the show, man. He says, who is the front runner in your mind to break Stipe's record of most successful heavyweight title defenses? Keep in mind that Francis's true dream has always been to become a heavyweight champion in boxing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think there's anyone on the horizon who stands out. You know, I think Francis is a guy who can win the title, but until we have seen him, extended in a fight again, we don't know if he's going to have the well-rounded game to hold that belt 5 times, right? Is that what the record is? Or 4 times?
Well, that's one way to interpret it, because that's the amount of heavyweight titles that Stipe has won. You could also interpret this as breaking 3 consecutive title defenses, which is Stipe's
I don't
record.
see Francis as that kind of champion.
I do. I think he does it. I think he's going to do it. But we'll see. He very well may not. He very well may not.
I don't see anyone on the horizon who's going to win the belt and then reel off 3 in a row right now.
Do you think John could do it?
I have to see John at heavyweight, but I would say it's highly unlikely.
Okay, fair enough. Now moving on to our next question. This is from Matt, the MMA fan. He says, do you guys really not have the phrase, he's not going to shag you in the U.S.? This is a inside joke to me, because I was...
okay, because I was like, I didn't even get this question.
I was making some...
like 10 minutes.
No, you know what it was? I was making a joke about Sugar Sean, just because he's saying, did I lose? Yes. Am I undefeated? Yes. And so I think I posted that and was just, giving him a little bit of a hard time. And I guess this guy's a big Sugar Sean O'Malley fan, because he said he's not going to shag you, mate. And then I gave a confused look. So it's like, what are you talking about? I'm insulting him. So yeah, I was just, I'm aware of the phrase, bro. I didn't think it was really fit my tweet, but anyways, good question, I guess. Sort of, kind of. Okay, moving on to the voice questions. We actually have 3 this week, Fight Geek.
Nice.
The first one comes from our man, Smokey J MMA. Great guy. Give him a follow. He's the man. And here it is right now.
Hey there, Split Decision Podcast. Fight Geek and Phil the MMA Dude. It is fucking Smokey J here from Australia. There's been a pretty big fight announced in the last week or so. The Korean Zombie versus Brian Ortega. T-City. I'm fucking pumped for this one, man. I am excited as shit. Lots been talked, obviously, about Brian Ortega's layoff and his activity for the last couple of years, which is where I'd like to remind people that fucking the Korean Zombie had a layoff for 2 or 3 years and came back and absolutely wrecked shop. So we won't take that into account too much. I have a question for each of you guys this week. Fight Geek. Fucking this one looks like it's going to be booked as a 3-rounder, so who's that suiting better? The Korean Zombie or T-City? And Phil, the MMA dude, just looking at their resumes on paper, man, who's got the more fucking impressive record? Korean Zombie or T-City? That's all, guys. Bye.
Oh man, I love Smokey J. But wait, one thing that he said that really caught me by surprise, he said it's looking to be a 3-rounder.
Yeah, is that true?
I didn't think so. He's making me really double check things. I don't know what he's talking about. No. Smokey J, my good friend, you're crazy, homie. It's the main event.
Honestly, I don't think a 3-rounder would. I don't really think it would favor either guy.
It would have maybe. I mean, it would have. I would have leaned on that favoring Ortega for sure. To be honest.
Yeah, a little bit, but both guys are fairly fast starters, and both guys have great cardio. So, I think they're both three-round comfortable.
Anyways, to be clear, it is a 5-round main event. I'm sorry, Smokey J. I know that's definitely bad news for you and Brian.
I would say 5 rounds favors the Korean Zombie.
Definitely. But in any case, I do think it's only going to take 1 round for Korean Zombie to stop Brian Ortega.
Big surprise.
But
I think it takes around 4.
Okay, to answer Smokey J's question, because in fairness, he asked me who has a better record right now, Ortega or Chan Sung Jung. Jung is 16-5. Brian is at 14-1 with 1 no contest. So I would at first say Brian. However, after Brian's first and only loss, he refused to fight for 2 years, which is pretty embarrassing. Therefore, Korean Zombie's record is better.
He's not asking numerically who's better. He's saying who has the better record.
I know. He wanted me to say Ortega, and I had to find a way to not give him that satisfaction.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true. The Korean Zombie has fought a lot of high-level guys. He's fought Dustin Poirier, Frankie Edgar.
Oh, he's got a way better record in terms of who he's fought, definitely.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's the question, isn't it?
Oh, okay. I just was getting defensive from the 14-1. Okay.
Yeah, who has the better resume?
Oh, Korean Zombie by far. Korean Zombie. Definitely.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah, I think Ortega's greatest win is the Frankie Edgar knockout, which the Korean Zombie matched. Then, I mean, Ortega, I guess that one where he snatched up Cub Swanson's neck, those are really the 2 highlight wins of his career.
Yeah. Wow. And when you say those out loud, they really don't age well, do they? Especially like the Cub Swanson.
Yeah, so, I would definitely say the Korean Zombie's career as a whole has been more impressive, even with the shortcomings.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, he just knocked out Moicano in impressive fashion as well, didn't he?
Moicano, and then after that, it was Edgar, and it was both obviously easily
his
inside the first round.
His boxing and his striking has looked unbelievable since he came back from his service.
Oh, I think he's going to be a tremendous... Ortega needs to be very, very, very worried about this. Very.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of variables with Ortega considering he's been out for so long. There's a chance that he's all healed up and he comes back super sharp and with new tricks as a new fighter. So you never know.
I hope I'm not being too much of a hater when I say I'll believe that Ortega shows up to that fight when the cage door closes behind him. We'll see. Hopefully he shows. I know his mama bought tickets.
Okay.
You like that little Kevin Lee joke? No?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. This question is now from Kairos MMA, the man. Guys, follow him on Twitter. Follow him on YouTube. Kairos is the man. He knows his stuff, and he's got a question for us. Here it is.
What is going on, Fight Geek? What is going on, Phil? Yes, that's right. I said Fight Geek's name first. You want to know why? Because we're beefing, Phil. I'm sick and tired of the disrespect on the timeline, and guess what? You're going to get it now.
Woo!
Anyway, moving on. A lot of people got upset with me because I said that if you have 10-plus losses and you've never won a title in any organization, then you are not a legend. So here's my question for you guys. What constitutes a legend? And I need a definitive answer. I can't have, you have legendary moments, or, you have some great fights, or, you've been around for a while. Because let's not get it twisted. If you've been around for a while, you're a veteran. If you've been at the top for a long period of time but never won that title, you're elite. I think for you to be legendary, you have to have something that vindicates that claim. And that has to be you winning a title, whether that's in Dream, Strikeforce, Pride, Bellator, One, whatever organization it is. That has to be what helps you. And to be fair, I did say Cowboy wasn't a legend even though he won the WEC title, and I'm backing down from that claim based off of the criteria. But you got to win a title. You can't not win a title is my point. What would your criteria be, and how do you feel about it? Thank you so much, Fight Geek. Phil, you're all right, I guess.
Wow. Wow,
Thanks for the
Kairos.
question,
All right, bro.
Kairos.
It's like that, huh, homie?
Such
It's like
a
that.
tough question. Goodness.
Why is he coming at me? We're beefing. All right, Kairos. Yo.
I mean, I
It's on
personally
site,
think
Kairos.
you can be a legend without winning a title. I mean,
You can't. You cannot
any
be.
title. What do you mean you can't? I mean, you look at a guy like Nick Diaz, case in point. Nick Diaz is the definition of a fighter who has had legendary performances. and
Kairos
is a
just said you
legend
can't
that
include
will live
legendary.
on
You
forever.
can't just say legendary performances, bro.
Right. Well, Nick Diaz is a legend, but he was a Strikeforce champion. So I guess under the criteria
And
that Kairos is
WEC
giving,
champ, wasn't he?
huh?
And didn't he win WEC champion as well?
I'm not sure about that, but
Am I crazy? Okay, maybe I'm crazy.
let's try and identify a few legends who never were champions and go from there. That might be easier. So Nate Diaz, for instance. Nate Diaz has never won a title, but I think Nate Diaz submitting Conor McGregor on 2 weeks' notice in the biggest fight of his career solidifies as a legendary fighter and a legendary moment. No, or what?
Well, I agree with half of it. Was it a legendary moment? Oh yeah, you bet your ass.
But was it enough of a legendary moment to become an actual legend?
Nope,
Because there's
nope,
murals
nope.
of Nate Diaz painted on buildings in his hometown.
I love Nate Diaz. I
know.
love Nate Diaz.
Nate Diaz is
huge
a
Nate
legend
Diaz
no
fan.
matter how you look at it, and he's never been a champion.
I agree with Kairos 100%. I think you need to have at least one title. For example, Dan Henderson, who we were just arguing about, he would qualify under these rules. He would.
Fine. So does that mean Chael Sonnen is not a legend?
Yeah, that means Chael Sonnen is not a legend. It means he's a really good fighter.
See, I don't see that. It's just like with the Hall of Fame. It's not like the Hall of Champions.
Didn't Chael win a WEC belt, but it was illegitimate because the guy missed weight? Can't you kind of count that?
Well, I guess we can just bend all the rules then.
I mean, John Jones does it. Why can't we?
Well, keep trying to find a legend then that has not won. I mean, I think Nate Diaz probably comes the closest to it, and that's just off the heels of beating Conor McGregor.
Yeah. Okay, look, I think that's fair.
You don't think that Tony Ferguson, on the heels of a 12-fight winning
Ferguson
streak,
counts. Ferguson counts because he won an interim belt, and I 100% count those.
Okay.
Ferguson is a legend, and he won a belt.
All right. Well, then I guess I'll have to back off my claim. And I guess, yeah, owning a title in some notable organization matters.
Oh, victory
sure.
tastes so sweet. Ooh, everyone tasting that? That's taste of victory. Fill over Fight Geek there. That tastes good. Okay, moving on.
Well, here, I got one for you. Is the Korean Zombie a legend?
No, he's not.
He's not?
Wait, did he win the WC belt? No, he didn't. Don't try to stress me out.
I'm going to try and find one.
Don't try to stress me out with this WEC thing. He didn't win the WEC belt. Don't make me second guess stuff. No, he's not. And I admit it. Again, this isn't based on my personal, likes with fighters, bro.
No, I know. I just had never considered it that way. But good question. And yeah, I think actually after thinking about it, some title is warranted.
Okay, awesome. Victory tastes so sweet. Okay, this question is from Jim Asoon, the man, the myth, the legend, and here it is.
What's going on, you bunch of fucking casuals? Bill, Fight Geek. Hope you're both doing good. Hope all you casuals are doing well. My question for you is, what do you think about this Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal 2 fight? Supposedly being in the works, or possibly being in the works. Who knows? I heard someone say that both sides have agreed. They just haven't had the paperwork signed or something. I think it's just a fucking UFC wants the pay-per-view money, right? That's all they're looking for. Their hope's going to be just as big as last time. I find that hard to believe, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get your thoughts on that, so. It is what it is, kids. And it's always 420. Peace.
Great question, Uncle Jim. Fight Geek, you want to start us off here?
No, you take this one first. I'd like to know what you think.
Yeah, great. So look, I think I've been shouting for a few months now. I hate to be like the I told you so guy, but I actually am in a beat with Yugi, Uncle Yugi, not Yagi, Yugi. who's a big Leon Edwards and Usman fan, and he bet me my cover photo for 6 months. We bet our cover photos for 6 months. I said Masvidal will headline a pay-per-view in his next fight. He said no, he's not. And it looks like I'm right. Because, look, guys, Masvidal's a giant star. He did 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. I understand the frustrated Leon Edwards fans. I truly do. You could definitely make an argument that Leon deserved the Masvidal fight. But the UFC is a business first and foremost, and it made zero business sense to take Jorge Masvidal, their new prized pony, who they put on the cover of UFC 4, and he just lost, by the way, so he needs a win, and then put him in what? A fight night main event against Leon Edwards, who nobody knows? I mean, it just didn't make any...
And who has a bad style for him?
Right, exactly. And I admit that, and who has a bad style for him. So it was just never going to happen. And I'm a little surprised at how many people are surprised. I'm not surprised at people disliking it. I get it. It's kind of boring. Do I think that Diaz has a chance at beating Masvidal? Not really. So I get the frustration, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you just said. I think it's a no-brainer. At this point, it's in the UFC's and Masvidal's best interest to protect his brand. And I think they see Nate Diaz as the best way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
Nate Diaz is a huge name and a winnable fight. So
right, why wouldn't Masvidal do it? And I'm sure, by the way, that Jorge is thinking because, again, the rumors, this isn't confirmed, the rumors say that the BLM belt will, BMF belt? BMF belt. Okay. The BMF belt, baddest motherfucker belt, will be on the line for Masvidal Diaz 2. And so what I'm thinking is, look, Masvidal's just going to sit and defend that belt and just headline pay-per-views against strikers defending that belt.
Yeah, well, there's only two guys that make sense to do that against.
I think he's planning to lure Conor.
You think he's going to have the BMF fight with Vicente Luque?
Hey man, you laugh. Luque's looking better and better.
No, I love Vicente Luque, and he's a true BMF. But no, Jorge Masvidal's got about 5 guys on the whole roster he is willing to fight, I'm sure.
And by the way, if he beats Diaz a second time and Conor, for whatever reason, does not come to fruition, maybe you find a way to make Masvidal Wonder Boy too, because Wonder Boy has that win over him.
There's that, and then, you can see what happens with, I know Jeff Neal's not a great matchup, but Jeff Neal versus Masvidal somewhere down the line could be interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Jeff Neal kind of lacks that big name energy right now, but that could change.
That's because he just missed his turn in line. Didn't he just...
something horrible happened to him health-wise, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I think he was building that momentum with his last performance, and then it was really set up for this last performance that he missed. But I think if he gets back in there and looks good, that buzz will come back pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. And then we've only got 2 questions left. So really quick, this is from Joe General. That's at Joseph General 8. He says, long-time MMA guy here. My question is, #AskSplitPod, which MMA fighter do you think wasted his career? Number 1 in my book is the original notorious ... Lee Murray. Wow, taking us back.
Yeah, that's a great choice. You have anybody off the top of your head that wasted their career?
Such a harsh term. I think that you could make a strong argument for... I was going to say...
War Machine?
Well, yeah.
That's low-hanging fruit, but he clearly ruined his career.
Low-hanging fruit is John Jones. How much time has he spent outside of the cage?
John Jones is requesting $15 million a fight right now, so I don't think that...
Is he going to get it? I look forward to him trying to get that money.
Well, if he fights Brock Lesnar, I have a feeling he'll probably get more than that.
We'll see. But yeah, no, obviously Jones is one of the greatest of all time. I was just saying he spent
You mean just his reputation, more or less.
No, I'm saying he spent so many years inactive due to punishment, right?
Well, how about this one? And this is kind of a controversial answer because she had so much success. How about Ronda Rousey handling her losses the way she did and just leaving the sport altogether?
Yeah, that was really embarrassing. But that's how she was always going to handle it, and that's who she always was.
But that was a polar opposite. A year before that, that happened, she was talking about beating Cain Velasquez and Floyd Mayweather and saying she was going to retire undefeated. So that was as much of a 180 as humanly possible.
And you're 100% right about that. But what I would say, Fight Geek, is watching Ronda's early, back when she was undefeated, right? Did you ever get any inkling that she would be a classy or good loser? I did not.
Well, I didn't. I never thought she'd be the worst loser in the history of the sport.
And she is by far, and it's not even close.
Yeah, I never pegged her as that at all.
Yeah, you'd think there would be some humility in
she
class.
Legitimately has a stake to the Mount Rushmore of MMA, and she's just decided to throw all of that away.
Yeah, I mean,
she's
not a classy. Look, let's just call she's not exactly Mrs. Class, right? She's
all right. No, so do you have anybody else?
Yeah,
Thiago Silva, an old name, a guy who kind of went off the rails.
What about Thiago Silva? Oh yeah, you're saying that he was the biggest letdown?
Well, he was considered to be the next big thing at 205. He was pretty impressive, and I think the last I heard of him, he was having a standoff with cops and guns and all kinds of craziness. So
what about Renan Barão?
Well, I mean, I think he went on a 10-year winning streak and held the belt, so how much of his career did he waste?
I mean, you can't deny that he's been viewed overall as a large disappointment in the UFC.
I don't know who. I mean, he had an unfortunate end to it, but again, he had a dominant title run, so I don't think he really applies either. This is people who never fulfilled their potential.
Michael Johnson. Mike, let me just scream it. Michael Johnson.
Right, but the guy he's referencing is in prison for the rest of his life for robbing a bank or trying to. So, I mean, I don't think Michael Johnson is really a fair comparison to that. Michael Johnson's just a middling lightweight.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
Maybe, and it's hard to say, BJ Penn.
Wait, what? Well, now I'm really not following you, dude. What are you talking about? BJ Penn is viewed as one of the greatest. He's got belts in multiple divisions.
But he basically wasted his career away by going 0-9 or whatever in the last few fights, taking horrible matchups, not training. I mean, it's literally been the theme of BJ's career, whether or not he's going to show up in shape to his fights. I mean, it's been going on for 20 years. If BJ Penn would have taken his career much more seriously, he probably unequivocally would be the best lightweight fighter who ever walked the earth. But
I mean, I'd say he is right now, and the only person who's about to eclipse him is Khabib.
No, that's not true. His resume at 155 is spotted all over the place. He lost to Frankie Edgar 3 or 4 times.
I understand, man, but whoa. You're making it hold up. You're making it sound like he doesn't have UFC lightweight title defenses.
No,
doesn't he have the record?
But what I'm saying, the question is who wasted their career, Phil?
Okay, if you're going to tell me, all right, that's BJ Penn. BJ Penn had quite a good career for someone who wasted it so bad. That's all I'm saying. Quite a good career.
BJ Penn at 16 and 15 overall isn't a wasted career?
No, I just think he should have retired in 2011. Duh.
Well, this was a theme throughout BJ's career. Even in his prime, it was motivated BJ. Was he training correctly? Was he eating beer and hot dogs and getting in street fights up to his fights? Like, BJ Penn was probably the least disciplined elite fighter of all time.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm getting the wasted his career, because if he would have been focused his whole career, like, some other athletes were, I don't know, more of like a Matt Hughes, who he beat 2 out of 3 times, he probably would have been the most dominant lightweight champion of all time.
Okay, and I've got a final answer I just thought of, and this is a controversial one. But what do you think of this? And hear me out, Ray Borg, and that's controversial and that's sensitive. Look, we all know what the horrible things that Ray went through personally, but let's not forget it was only a few years ago that he challenged Mighty Mouse for the flyweight belt and actually put on a very lively performance, and then eventually got submitted with one of the most incredible subs ever.
I would say that's an appropriate answer, but it's more based on the fact that he missed weight so many times.
And but wouldn't that count as wasting career?
100%.
Yep. So Ray Borg would be there, and I wish Ray the best because it's such a sad story. Too much. But okay. So then my final questions. My final question comes from at Hapeter Griffin. HAPETERGRIFFIN, and he says, Am I the only one who thinks Costa could be a problem for Izzy? Hashtag AskSplitPod. And
Not at all.
Yeah. Not at all. Not at all.
And I think that's why that fight is so amazing, because if you think you know what's going to happen, you're fooling yourself. That fight's going to be madness. And if, they both could win, they both present problems. Is Izzy probably the favorite right now? Sure. But Costa presents all kinds of problems.
He does. I go back and forth on what I think is going to happen in this fight like every other day. Seriously.
I mean, what we know is that Costa can take a big shot.
No doubt. But I think the concern is Costa. If Costa starts swinging and trying to get Izzy out of there in the first 10 minutes, right? Let's say that. Yeah. And he wins the first 2 rounds. Let's say that. If Izzy's still alive in the third, starting at the third, I feel like Costa might be dead man standing.
I don't know about dead man standing, but yeah, I mean, I could see a fight very similar to the Gastelum fight early on, but I just think that Costa is going to be much more physically imposing than Gastelum, and if he lands those same shots, he might be able to get Izzy out of there.
Yeah, absolutely he could.
But I agree with you. From the third round on, that fight will really start to lean towards Izzy, but with that said, I mean, we really haven't seen Costa show that like drop off a cliff in his cardio. I mean, he still throws at a pretty good pace even when he's exhausted, and so
he looked pretty tired in the third round against Yoel.
And he still won it though, didn't he?
He did, but he didn't win the third round though.
Yeah, you're right. But he did exert a lot of energy in there versus Yoel, so a lot more than Izzy did.
No, definitely. I think that if I think it's an amazing fight. I still don't, we haven't made our picks, and I'm glad we haven't, because I still change my mind. I just think if I'm Costa's team, if I'm his coach, I'm telling him, you got to get him out of there in 2. You got to get him out of there.
Right.
Do you think that's the correct strategy or no?
Well, I think Costa's style in general is so aggressive that he fights to get you out of there immediately. So yeah, I think it would benefit him. If he's going to have his major success, it's probably going to be in the first 10 rounds.
First 10
minutes, excuse me.
Yeah. I just think that if this starts going into the third, into the fourth, into the fifth, Izzy's going to start picking him apart.
If it gets to the fifth, I think it would be highly probable that Israel would finish him.
Yes, I totally agree. But anyways, we'll talk about more about that on the official UFC 253 episode. But with that, guys, I believe our time has come to an end. Really, really quickly before I hand it over to Fight Geek, if you could subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to us, give us a quick 5-star review. It makes all the difference in the world. And with that, Fight Geek, I will hand it off to you.
All right, guys, as usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. I'm at the Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil, the MMA dude. We are at Split_podcast. 4 words, the Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.